to get the ball. Miller off a screen, curls right side, into the lane, kick out, snare for the win! Got it!
Ooh la la, ah wee wee.
There's time remaining.
Ah wee wee.
Michael Snare has done it again.
All right, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Nole Hoops Authority podcast. I'm joined, as always, by Anthony Scadillo, and today we'll be talking about the Florida State Seminoles, as we always do, except that we probably won't be as positive as we were last time. It was a bit of a difficult week, and we're going to get into that in a second. But first, do want to just say Keontae Johnson has been released from the hospital, which is great news. Obviously, there's a lot more to learn about what caused this problem, and it may have larger impacts on the sports landscape as a whole. However, we're just happy that he's out and safe and, able to put up videos dancing with his teammates. That's the best news we could have asked for. So beyond that, all we can hope for is that we don't see anything like this again, whether it's related to COVID or not, because the primary thing here should be the safety of these kids.
I agree. That's probably the best news that Florida State basketball had this week, is finding out that Keontae is healthy, removed from the hospital with his family, and especially this time of year, right around the holidays. Don't want to see anything bad happen to any family members. So good to see him healing up, and hopefully a speedy and full recovery for him, and would love to see him back on the court.
Yeah, obviously it won't be this year. They did announce it was a season-ending condition, but hopefully at some point he can get back out there. That would be incredible news. But now moving to the Florida State Seminoles, I thought my Georgia Tech prediction was going to be the worst prediction I could have had after they went out and lost to Georgia State and Mercer. However, definitely think that I have topped it, and I certainly don't think I'm alone in this one, but my statement in the first podcast we did, where I said that UCF was possibly the worst team on our schedule, couldn't have been further from accurate. And this is not to say that I think UCF is a Final Four team or anything along those lines, but I think we are all a little bit surprised at the quality of this team. And I almost feel foolish, because I feel like this team for UCF is almost falling prey to what Florida State usually does, and that people don't really look into their roster. They don't look at the guys they have, and they just kind of assume that since they're a school from Florida that's never really had any major success, they're not going to be anything. And I think we kind of did that to an extent. But why don't you take us through some of your takeaways from that game, and then we could talk more about UCF itself.
Yeah, this is one of those early season Florida State games that we see on an annual basis, where the other team just absolutely lights it up and does not miss. Figured in years past, Indiana, those Pittsburgh games, whether it's a whistle fest or someone doesn't want to miss. Danny Green's little brother last year on Indiana lit it up, and this year it was UCF, and kudos to them. This is a team built on transfers, a team built on unheralded recruits, but it's a team that was very impressive and has a pretty impressive resume to this point in the season. Obviously, it's early. Johnny Dawkins had 2 weeks to fully prepare for this Florida State game, and it showed. They were able to break the press very easily. They attacked the basket. They knew they were faster than us and took advantage of that. The three-headed monster of Adams, CJ Walker, and Mahan was too much for us to handle, and we didn't have anyone really step up on the offensive side for us to take over a game. I think there was a pivotal point in the game where Florida State was making a run, and MJ Walker tried to dunk a ball all the way to UCF campus, and it ended up actually going off the rim all the way to Orlando, Florida. So not exactly what you want to see. I think if he had actually hammed that one down, would have been a little bit tighter to the end, and I think we could have pulled away. That was kind of the momentum swing that we were looking for. It was right as we were making a little bit of a comeback, but kudos to UCF. We both overlooked them. We were both very wrong in our prediction of the game. We both had Florida State as a double-digit winner here. Can't say a whole lot of positive came from that UCF game on the Florida State side. Didn't see much offensively, especially from Scotty, the guy that we had just got done hopping up on the previous pod. But something that you have to build off of. Florida State hasn't really been smacked in the face to this point, and that was the smack in the face that I think this team needed before they head into ACC play.
Yeah, and I think you definitely brought up an important point about UCF having the 2 weeks to game plan. They were not on COVID restrictions themselves. They had a bunch of games canceled because of other teams' COVID restrictions. And so, like you said, they not only had 2 weeks to game plan, but they had 2 weeks to practice, and they came in completely fresh. And the energy was just clearly a massive, massive difference between these two teams. Florida State looked as if they were exhausted, and at times, I think could even be construed as uninterested in putting forth a full amount of effort. I think that a lot of this stems because there is very little comfort in the rotations at this point, and the depth is not looking like we are accustomed to it looking. And I think this is part of the reason why we see Florida State drop these types of games. I put it on Twitter a few years back. It was Oklahoma State down in Sunrise that it was a game you absolutely shouldn't lose. You lose. Last year, they lose to Pitt and BC, both terrible losses that they shouldn't take. This year, hopefully it's UCF and we don't see a deluge of them. But I think that early in the season, it's very hard for this team to fully feel comfortable in their rotations. And I think especially this year, getting used to a true freshman running the point, it's been a struggle. And we've seen some of those depth guys. We talked after the Georgia Tech game how bad we need Raekwon Evans and Tanner Nagam to come back. And Raekwon comes back and he was atrocious against UCF.
Terrible.
Really played a very poor game, didn't handle it well, didn't really do anything well. And like you said, there wasn't a lot of players who did anything well in that game whatsoever. And to your larger point about Scotty, it became concerning, and we'll talk about it with the Gardner-Webb game. We're saying when this guy wants, he can get anything he wants to. He can get buckets wherever he wants to, especially, against UCF. They weren't putting CJ Walker on him. They weren't putting their strongest, defender on Scotty. And he just refused to take it to the bucket. And at a point, this guy's got to learn that if the rest of the team is stagnant, it doesn't matter if it's first half, second half, overtime, or what. You've got to be willing to take throughout the game. It can't just come in spurts. And I found that very concerning in this UCF game, was that he just really decided to never turn it on.
How much of that do you think stems from the fact that he's shooting 41% from the free throw line?
I think that it's absolutely got to be part of the concern there. And I don't know if that's something I tend to think that Ham and the rest of the staff would say, take it to the bucket. Eventually you're going to start hitting free throws, and maybe he's in his own head, but he shouldn't be. He can't play in Florida State's system effectively if he's not willing to take it to the bucket and see what happens when he gets to the free throw line. Does that need to improve? Absolutely. I think we can agree on that. But if that's destroying his confidence, that's even worse news. We see when he gets to the line, you can watch him and see that he has zero confidence in his free throw shot. He does not stick to form. He kind of wavers, and you can see a look in his eye that is like, I'm not making this shot. What we can't have is have that bleed over into the rest of his game. And we haven't seen that, bleed over, except to say that he just kind of stopped trying on offense to go to the bucket. He was just rotating. And I do think, to be fair, we were trying to break their zone, so we put him in the middle to try to break the press and everything like that. And that probably throws him off because you're completely changing his scheme. But it just seemed odd to me. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was just, we're just early season. He's figuring things out. Maybe the coach just told him, hey, you got to let someone else take over. But I didn't like seeing that for a whole game.
No, and I mean, I don't want to harp on this too much, but last year the team was shooting above 80% from the free throw, 75% from the free throw line as a unit. And our leader on the offensive side, when things were going a little haywire was Trent Forrest. Obviously, the bucket on the team was Vassell last year, and I think you could say the bucket on the team this year is MJ Walker, and MJ is shooting 92% from the free throw line. So that's a major. He was an 80% free throw shooter last year, so we're seeing an upgrade there. But Trent always attacked the basket, and that opened up the threes for Polite. It opened up the threes for Wilkes last year. It opened up the threes for Vassell last year. If Scotty's not going to go to the basket, we're going to see the poor three-point shooting that we're seeing now from this team because they're not open looks. They're just looks, and they're jacking up threes because the shot clock is winding down and they have to take the shot. Where last year Forrest was attacking the basket and either drawing the foul and shooting above an 80% clip or tossing it out to someone else who was going to hit a three in the corner on the wing. If Scotty's not going to do that, this team has serious limitations. I don't care that you're shooting 42% from the free throw line. I don't care at all. Because if you're going to get fouled on every drive, that means, almost 50% of the time you're going to get at least 1 point. And I don't think he's going to be a 42% free throw shooter throughout his Florida State career and onto his NBA career. But if there's a time to fix it, it's now, because we need to get to the basket if we're going to open up shots for other people. Right now, the only person really shooting from three is Anthony Polite at a 52% clip. You have MJ over a 41% clip. But outside of that, the team looks bad. The person who's supposed to be the best three-point shooter on the team and supposed to be the best three-point shooter in Florida State history, in Wyatt Wilkes, is shooting 23.5% from three. And he looks bad taking the threes. I don't know where these rainbow threes came from, but it looks like he's trying to shoot it literally over the scoreboard and into the basket. So we need to make some adjustments here if we're going to be an offensive force the way that we should be and actually get out into transition and get to the free throw line and draw fouls and get teams in trouble with our depth. Right now we're running 9 guys over 10 minutes. That's not a normal Florida State team. A normal Florida State team has 12 guys over 10 plus minutes with guys averaging five points a game and a couple rebounds here and there. Right now, we don't have any of that. We have 4 guys averaging over 10 points, and we only have 1 other guy averaging over 5 points a game. That's an issue. Defensively, they look a little sloppy with their switches and a little slow. So there's some major adjustments that need to be made here, and UCF showed all of them that night. All of them. They made us look, honestly, start to finish, relatively foolish.
Yeah, I think you brought up, really, really great points about, how Scotty, and I think that translates to Raekwon Evans as well. If Evans isn't willing to do the same things and drive to the hoop, which he's just been kind of sitting outside and taking shots from deep covered shots, we're not going to be able to be successful from the 3-point line. So that's got to change. One other thing I want to talk about from that game is kind of the coaching decision, because you brought it up. I thought Florida State was out schemed pretty considerably by Johnny Dawkins, and that the adjustments were not made whatsoever. Now, obviously, we just said it. They had 2 weeks to scheme. They're going to be a lot more prepared than our team, who's coming off a week of really big games. You played 3 big games in a row. However, we didn't really adjust mid-game or do anything that made it better. And it almost seemed to me like Ham was saying, and this is Ham's personality, but it's nonetheless can be frustrating. I don't care if we lose this game. I'm still figuring out this team, and I'm going to do what it takes to figure this team out. When he throws Harrison Prieto out there in the most pivotal point of the game, Florida State is on a run while they throw him in there. Florida State gets within 3, which I guess you could say he had something to do with, although I think anyone watching that game could tell that he didn't. And then he not only did he pick up foul on defense, but he also sets a moving screen that turns the ball over. I don't really understand where Ham's thinking from there. If that's Tanner Nagam or even Quincy Ballard in at that point, okay, I get it, because that's a guy who could become part of the rotation and is a guy. Do we think that Harrison Prieto is ever going to get meaningful minutes? Like what is Ham trying to figure out there? And is he just sending a message to the rest of the team that if you're not going to play with energy, I'll throw in a white walk-on who's willing to do so? Like, what was that decision, and what was the overall feeling you got from Ham and the staff?
Yeah, I think we saw in that UCF game, Balsa and Malik Osborne both were playing, to put it nicely, pretty soft. Malik has not looked like Malik of 19 to this point, and it's a little concerning, I guess, to say the least. We saw, I don't want to jump ahead to the Gardner-Webb game. We saw an uptick in the Gardner-Webb game. We saw like that energy come back. I would agree with you. Ham, without like a normal preseason and without a full training camp and without some of these games that we would normally schedule in the beginning of the year and a full slate of, I guess we can call it tune-up games, that's where Ham finds his rotations, finds the players that are going to give him the energy throughout the year. And he hasn't had that. To your point, it did seem kind of like a spiteful move. Like, hey, I'm going to find somebody that wants to play tonight. If it's not you guys, so be it, get off the court. And if we lose this game, okay, we'll end up being 4-1, 5-1 heading into ACC play. And so be it. We'll figure it out when we have to play the big boys. Take the L early in the season as opposed to late in the season when we need the momentum carrying into the ACC and NCAA tournament. With that said, it's an embarrassing loss because top to bottom, we obviously have more talent in this team, and we shouldn't have to be playing walk-ons to get energy. I know it's a 9:00 game, little bit of a late start. Hell, a little bit of a late start for me. I didn't want to sit until 11:30 watching Florida State lose to an unranked, mid-conference team. Like, I don't want to see that, and I don't think they want to lose that game. But if you don't want to lose that game, try harder, do something, like make an adjustment on the floor. Don't just like sit there and pout and be upset that you're losing. Like, do something. You're having these kids run up and down the court on you. Florida State is riddled with 5-star recruits and 4-star recruits. Play to your stars. Like, don't be embarrassed by other players that were not even recruited to your school. I think it was a statement game for UCF. It was the Mackenzie Milton revenge game for UCF, and
send them back.
Yeah,
they got
theirs now. They got theirs, and we'll take this L and hopefully learn and grow from it. But there wasn't a whole lot of good to take away from this game, and hopefully it's just a stepping stone into the right direction as we head into ACC play.
Yeah, and real quick on UCF, I do want to highlight, when you dive deeper into that roster, Isaiah Adams is a true freshman kid that was Mr. Basketball in Florida, but was clearly a late bloomer. He is the exact type of guy that Ham usually lands and brings in. He is a Devin Vassell type talent. Like, that kid is, I fully believe, has potential to be in the NBA. And it's probably a miss on our part that from our state, we didn't capitalize on the exact type of guy that.
Not only from the state, like an hour and a half away from Tallahassee. Like, come on.
Yeah. And so we can't complain about recruiting. Ham has done an incredible job, but that's just to say that's a guy that I think would be getting really solid minutes on Florida State's team right now. And then CJ Walker is Leonard Hamilton's prototype of a player. He can't shoot, but he is athletic and he plays incredible defense. And his energy, to me, was what drove everybody else. He wasn't the guy that was scoring. He wasn't the guy that was like necessarily changing the game on the offensive end. But everything he was doing in transition and on defense was driving everything else that team was able to do. And I think UCF has a chance to be a pretty good team. And I never thought I'd say that. They've got shooters. They've got another really quality transfer in Perry from Louisville, who knows how to handle the ball, is a really smart kid. He was all academic ACC every year at Louisville. They've got a kid in Green. I don't know why we keep facing these Greens who make 6 3-pointers a game, but that kid can light it up. I watched them play Cincinnati last night, and they almost blew the game, but they were up really large on Cincinnati and looked really good. This is not to say I think this is a Final Four team. Like I said, they play Houston on Saturday, and I think that's going to be a rude awakening for them. I don't think they win that game, but if they do, we could maybe say, all right, this is a better loss than we thought it would be. It doesn't excuse, though, that it exposed a weakness for us, that someone can play small ball and can if they had the athletes, can really give Florida State trouble, because CJ Walker was making Balsa look like a 14-year-old child. He looked just like he did last season against CJ Walker. And we won't preview this game yet, but when we look at playing teams like Clemson, they're going to be throwing out the exact same type of roster and the exact same type of athletes. And it's very concerning that a UCF team was able to expose this on us when they don't have nearly the experience or even the talent level that a team like Clemson is going to. So not a lot of good news came out of that.
Yeah, and to your point, I think it's super concerning because this isn't the first game where we've seen teams without bigs kind of dominate our bigs. Now, I know we beat Indiana, but Jackson Davis had himself a night. He had almost 20 rebounds, so it's not pretend that going small ball hasn't worked against FSU. It's working. I hope that these other teams are not taking notice to what's going on in Tallahassee, because this is an absolute problem. In years past, we've had that kind of athletic freak that we could throw, at the center position, whether it was Pat Williams. Before that, we had Isaac, who could go kind of big. I mean, even before that, not as big, but Terrence Mann he is that CJ Walker for UCF. Dude can't shoot, but he'll do everything else. He'll hustle. He'll get steals on fast breaks. He'll jump through the gym. Where's that guy this year? Who's going to be that guy? I thought it would be Malik Beasley. He stepped up a little bit in Gardner Webb. I'm hoping that's kind of a catalyst. But
I hope it's not Malik Beasley.
Oh, excuse me. You're right.
He has too many guilty.
He has a couple other things to worry
Scottie
about.
Pippen wives to worry about, right?
Yeah. So Beasley's got his own issues, but Osborne has some issues too, and I hope he can kind of use the Gardner Webb game as a catalyst for the end of the season or the rest of the season, and be that spark plug off the bench, because that's what he's been up until this point in Garnet and Gold, and we need that guy. He is the guy last year that didn't need to be the leader in any statistical category, but when it came down to throwing an elbow in somebody's face on a rebound and then spitting in that dude's face while he's on the ground bleeding, that was him. That was him, and we don't have that guy right now. Somebody's going to have to smack one of these other teams in the face and be like, hey, this is our court again. Sorry, we don't have the fans here, but my elbows are still sharp. And I hope somebody steps up. And if it's someone, my prediction is Malik, obviously not Beasley. He's getting paid and breaking the law and doing other things. But Osborne needs to step up, and we need other guys to play with energy. It seems like a little lethargic team right now.
Yeah, and speaking of Osborne and the step he took forward, let's talk about Gardner Webb. To me, I almost was more discouraged by Gardner Webb than I was by UCF. Now, I do want to clarify, Gardner Webb is not a terrible team. They played Western Kentucky extremely close. This is a team that could win their tiny conference and could find a way into the NCAA tournament. This is not the worst team on our schedule, but they are certainly one that is well overmatched. And for it to be as close as it was late in the game is very concerning. And I don't think we saw a massive uptick in the energy. We saw a slight uptick in the energy, but not a massive uptick. The team didn't come out looking for blood. And that's what I wanted to see, was a team that said, MJ in the press conference says, I'm not worried. We got to use this to learn. Well, if you're using it to learn, then you should be the guy out there that is barking at everybody on the court. You guys need to be, looking like you will do anything to win this game. And I didn't see that type of intensity. I saw we're trying harder, but we know we're going to win type of intensity. And I don't think that's fair, because as bad as Florida State shot, Gardner Webb shot way worse than they normally do from three. And if they're shooting at their regular clip and we continue to shoot 18% from three and 34% from the field, we would have lost that game too. Short of a late run, that's a single-digit game, and it really wasn't. It didn't deserve to be a double-digit spread at the end. And so, what are your thoughts and impressions from that game? I know we'll talk about Malik and a couple other things, but overall, what was your feeling? Because I did not come out of that feeling any better.
Well, I'll throw a couple caveats at this, because I do think Florida State played poorly overall. We're not, although Ham and this staff has said this could be one of the best shooting teams to come through Tallahassee and wear the Seminole colors. It's not shooting that way thus far this year. And if you're gonna jack up 33 3-pointers, the same amount as Gardner Webb does and did that night, 18% is not going to cut it. What saved us is they started shooting free throws well. Shot 75% from the free throw line on 32 attempts. If that's how you're going to win games, that's a Hamilton recipe for success. It needs to continue. Okay, drive the basket, get those fouls, get teams into foul trouble, which is what we normally do. Get out in transition. We saw a couple fast breaks this game. Only 6 steals though, and only 11 assists. So like we need to do a better job of distributing the ball. But the caveat I'll give is Lance Terry for Gardner Webb was kind of making some unreal shots, like bad shot selection that just like kept going in. He ended the night with 23 points. It was really the only offensive like machine that Gardner Webb had. Got lucky because this is a team that shoots the 3 ball pretty well and often, and they didn't. But this guy kind of wasn't missing. So it's like you take your wins with your L's here. I mean, didn't show enough to really say like, oh man, I'm confident going into ACC play, but I think the uptick from the free throw line gives me a little more confidence heading into the ACC play than if we hadn't shot well from the free throw line or didn't get the attempts. We kind of got both. So that's the only thing. That's like my silver lining of where FSU like did improve.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. Speaking of Lance Terry, that's not a guy that normally even does anything for them. It was kind of like an aberration. So to me, it's like, what was our defense really that great in the game, or were they missing looks that they normally make? I think it trends more towards they were missing looks they normally make. I wasn't overly impressed with any part of the defense. I know, looking at the stat sheet, I was shocked at how good Balsa looked on paper because I think he was plus 19 when he was on the court.
Finished with 14 and 8.
Yeah, and
like out of nowhere.
6 for 6 from the free throw line. But watching him, he still just seemed like soft, and it's getting really frustrating that when Scotty is facilitating really well and driving and kicking to him in the post, he can't seem to handle the ball. There was 2 separate instances in that game where he was fed a beautiful pass and just let it fumble off his hands out of bounds. He's got to be able to catch and the ball on the move going to the hoop. If he has to be standing with his back to the basket, we're not going to be as effective as a team. And so I really encouraged by him. Tenor looked awful. He didn't really do anything redeeming except hack people for no reason. Quincy, I guess, was okay. He had one nice, move to the hoop. And speaking of the bigs, the one silver lining for me, other than the free throws, was that we saw down the stretch in that game, Malik, I think, finally realized, like, oh, I'm still an important part of this team. And he started playing with energy. He started getting boards. He started putting the ball back up. It almost seems like he has lost a bit of confidence from getting put out of that starting role. And I hope he realizes that at Florida State, it doesn't matter if you're the first guy or the 8th guy down the bench. Your role is still the same, and we need him to be our energy guy. And like you said, that CJ Walker type role, because if he can't do that, I don't know where it comes from, to your point. And so I was super encouraged to at least see a little bit of that old attitude come out.
Yeah. And this was, we needed it, right? Because we saw Scotty go down with the ankle at one point, obviously came back. And when he came back, he played better than he was previously. So maybe that was like the wake up call, like, hey, like I need to step up my game a little bit. Cause he does, like, Scotty has the fire. Scotty has the energy. Scotty has the intensity, but you can't do it by yourself. Another guy that we saw kind of come out of the blue this game with that fire and intensity and showed me something on defense a little bit was Nate Jack. I know he's just going to shoot a lot of threes, which is perfectly fine. He had he had one go in this game. And if he's
he got fouled and went to the line on a three, which should be just as he hit 2 out of 3, which normally that I'll hit 3 of 3. That's just as good. To your point, though, I agree.
No, we need other people to step up. Like MJ finished with 7 points this game. That's not going to cut it. Okay. He's averaging 16 on the year. And this is averaging 16 on the year is not, again, not a normal Leonard Hamilton kind of line. Vassell only averaged 12 points last year. P-Dub less than that. And both of those guys are top 15 picks, with Williams going in the top 5, obviously. So like MJ controlling the ball so much or scoring as much as he did, like we don't necessarily need to see that, but we need to see something. Like he didn't even get to the free throw line really in this game, and he wasn't shooting the 3-ball well either. So it's good to see that Malik kind of stepped up. When Scotty went down, he kind of brought that intensity back, and we're going to need more of it moving forward. Balsa needs to step up his game. I mean, he's 7 feet tall. I would, I would give up my left foot to be 7 feet tall. Like, I don't really understand. Although I wouldn't be a great basketball player with 1 foot and 7
might
feet.
Struggle in the post there, Anthony.
But play big, play big. You're going against a team that doesn't have a kid above like 6'8". Like, play like it. Just, when you get the ball in the post, you don't need to bring the ball down. You're so tall that you can just like
go in.
Little place the ball into the basket, just like play like it. Like Raekwon Gray finishing with 4 points. I mean, luckily he had 8 rebounds. We rebounded well as a team. We had 20 more rebounds as a team than Gardner Webb did, but you should, like everyone, we've the third on every broadcast, according to Ken Pom, the third tallest team in all of college basketball. Okay. Like we'll, show it. Like show your height, show your size, show your length. We're not getting shot blockers on defense the way we have in years past. I don't know. It's a little bit different. I think I had my FSU blinders on through the first 3 or 4 episodes of this podcast. Like, oh my God, this is the team. We're going to the Final Four. Like, I'm so excited. And this week was a massive wake up call for me to say, like, we have some huge holes that we need to fix if we think we're going to be competitive in this league.
Yeah, and no one had the blinders on more than I did. You at least tempered and said they're not a Final Four team right now. I went the opposite way, and I don't know that I would say I don't still believe that. I think it's all there. I just think that what we saw is that this team can get out of place really quickly if Scotty is not willing to drive the bus. And I think we saw it down the stretch of Gardner Webb. Like you said, he came back in and he started playing with energy on both sides of the ball to say, like, you could tell. It was like, it's so clear. And this is what we're talking about. When he takes a game over, it's almost like a light just went on the court, like Scotty time. And it's like over for the other team.
Yeah.
And when is he just going to realize, like, I got to just do this all the time? Because he is the one that's going to drive this forward. And I think if he's willing to do it night in and night out, this team is Final Four good. Like you said, I was really discouraged by MJ. Weird game. Like I said, watching him in person, he kind of seems to float around. He's very efficient at scoring, all this stuff, but he's not acting like as much of as he doesn't seem to be the core of the team. He doesn't seem to be that guy. And that was what was really weird and concerning to me, was after he got that thigh bruise or whatever it was, he just looked like he couldn't have cared. He was sitting on that bench and it was like nothing else mattered, to the point where at the end of the game, we're making a run. We end up winning by 13. Everybody else is up, celebrating, which he doesn't need to stand up. He's not feeling great. But at least clap, do something. And it was to the point that Scotty was picked him up and clowned him and was like, "Hey, cheer up, dude," and carried him off the court. And so MJ's got to be the guy. Like, he's got to be the guy that pulls everyone together in a huddle and says, "Get your effing head on straight right now, guys. Let's go out here and play with energy." Because if he's not willing to do that, not willing to be the Terrence Mann, the Trent Forrest that gets this team together, Scotty can have all the energy in the world, but he is not the leader of the team. MJ is.
Do you think MJ's feeling the pressure of being the leader right now?
It looks like it, and it looks like he's getting discouraged, and that's not what we want to see. That's why we have the roster we do, is because on any given night, different guy can light it up. I mean, we haven't even talked about it, but the one guy that's been consistent and hasn't had a single bad game this whole year and has been fantastic every single game is Polite. Polite what has been nothing but a great defender, a great shooter. And against Gardner Webb, he even said, if no one else is willing to take it to the hoop, I'm going to take it to the hoop. And he was getting buckets in and around the rim. So that he's been the guy who's been like the leader to me is Polite. But we all know that it's got to be MJ or this team can't go anywhere. So I'm really hoping that having a full week gives some time to really sit and think and have this team come together and seem more like they did at the beginning of the season, more like they were a friendly group and that they were a family. Because these past 2 games, it hasn't seemed like a family as much as like a group of guys that have been frustrated at the way they're performing. And we see that year in and year out for stretches from Florida State. But if we go into Clemson, it ain't going to go well if you don't have a different attitude.
No. And Clemson's coming off, a win against Morehead State, but a very close loss to a ranked Virginia Tech team. So this is a team that's going to run out 11 guys for 10 minutes a game. It's a prototypical Florida State, what we would normally see from Florida State teams. It's those hockey lineups. It's guys with energy. It's guys that are going to crash the boards. It's going to pressure you on defense and go for steals. Like, this is what a Florida State team looks like. And Florida State's going to look in the mirror and say, like, damn, we don't really look like this right now. And I think they need to. And to your point, like, Polite is kind of carrying the team, averaging 12 points a game, third on the team in rebounds with 5 a game. Third on the team in assists with almost 2 a game. Third on the team in steals with almost 2 a game. Third on the team in blocks with almost a full block per game, and shooting 52% from 3. The only guy that's actually hitting threes when we need him to is Anthony Polite, and that dunk he had was awesome. That was another one. Like, every game we've seen at least one dunk that kind of fires up the team, and we needed it from him more than any other person in this game. And I'm glad he gave it to us because no one else was going to that point. He's been consistent. He's been a leader. Like, if MJ's not going to do it, I'm happy that Polite is going to do it because his time is now. I think he's been developing for a few years. I know his freshman year he was dealing with some injuries, but now he's really starting to pop and show what he can do. Ham has called him the best defender on the team. I would agree with that. He can lock the guards down. I love what I'm seeing from him, and I hope he continues to grow as the season goes along because we're obviously going to need him to if other guys aren't going to really step up.
Yeah, and we will come back on here and preview Clemson. There's obviously a lot to be concerned about going into that game. But I do want to clarify that I think the nature of this season, and partly the fact that, we waited so long for college basketball, leads to where the peaks and the valleys are kind of greater as a fan, to where when we're watching us be good, it's like we're never going to lose. And when we're bad, it's like we're the worst team in the country. And so I do want to clarify that my view on this, and I don't know if you agree, is that I don't think the sky is falling. I think that we're seeing concerns, but we've seen concerns every year from Florida State, and they've gotten fixed by the end of the year. I think this roster is going to be fine and more than fine. I think this is going to be one of the best rosters in college basketball. But it doesn't change the fact that we've now seen where our weaknesses are and what needs to be improved. And if you go in to ACC play without a senior leader at point guard like Trent Forrest, and you lose those first 2 or 3 games, this could get uglier than we would like it to. So do I think that's going to happen? No. But I hope that Ham is now shifting gears to say, I can't really take the time to figure out my rosters anymore. We need to win because these are important games to start out the ACC if we want to have a chance of being a title contender. And I think Florida State does. And I think everything we've ever seen from Leonard Hamilton is just when fans want to get on him the most is exactly when he flips the switch to make the team give everybody the middle finger. And I believe that that is going to happen. I'm concerned it may not happen against Clemson, but I do think that this team is going to be fine. And I think that FSU Twitter needs to calm down a little bit about this not being a tournament team or something along those lines. This is a talented squad, and I think they're going to win a lot of games.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing the freak out that we are from FSU Twitter and FSU fans because people are actually watching this year, which is great. Hey,
Yeah.
I've been watching for years. It's awesome. Welcome to the club. I'm happy that you all are watching now after watching the travesty that we've been calling our football team for the last few years. But yeah, welcome to a team that actually knows how to win and has high expectations. This is normal. This is okay. The only areas I would say of concern. Last year, we were averaging over 5 blocks a game. This year, we're averaging just over 4. We were averaging over 8 steals a game. This year, we're just over 7. Need to see our defense play a little bit better. That's an area where I think that we've been lacking, that if we continue to improve our defense just from steals alone and blocks, we do a great job of scoring in transition, scoring off of turnovers. Play a little bit harder on defense. This team is going to come together. It's still a super fast team, super strong team, super tall team, hard to score against kind of team that it's all going to come together. Our 3-point shooting is on line with what we were shooting last year, and that was a good shooting team. Our field goal percentage is just a tick lower than it was last year, but we've only played a couple games this year. I do foresee an uptick in that. Our free throw percentage is improving game over game. So it's good to see that we're improving there. And again, I don't think Scotty's going to be shooting 42% on the year. When we get to that point at the end of the season, I think we'll be closer, hopefully, to like a 60% free throw percentage. And that will, as a team, because he's carrying us so much from the free throw line, we'll see the team overall percentage go higher. The sky isn't falling. It's going to come together. The peaks and the valleys, like you said, are so prominent right now because this is really all we have going well for us as a Florida State fan until the baseball season starts. And even so, you're not going to see the size of the fan base that we'll see on the basketball side that you will see on the baseball side, regardless of how good we are. That's a great baseball team that we have. But we're a basketball school right now until the football team kind of picks it back up. And a lot of people are going to be upset when we lose games like this, especially to in-state teams like UCF. But I think we will, this could be a struggle against Clemson. I'm hoping it's not. It's at Clemson. Not that that makes for a huge advantage this year as opposed to other years, but this is a team that's going to come smack us in the face if we're not ready. So I think overall the team needs this time off this week to make some adjustments. And then, like you said, I think this is when Ham kind of says, okay, like I figured out the lineups now. I'm sorry, guys, for messing around as much as I did. Like, hey, this is our 9 guys that we're going to go with, and this is the lineups that work together well, and this is what we're going to run. Which is he normally makes that adjustment around this time of year every single year as we head into the thick of ACC play. And who knows, we might be all smiles from here moving out. I know I love when Ham has that like little evil grin he has when we start to really win games and play as a unit, because we haven't seen a full Florida State like performance yet. And I'm looking forward to it both on the offensive and defensive side, because when it happens, man, games aren't going to be very close.
I think that's a good way to end it. We will hop back on here and preview that Clemson game early next week before it happens. But until then, I want to remind all the Florida State fans out there that this is still an incredibly good team. Stick with them. Keep watching. Even if things get worse before they get better, they're going to get better, or I'll be incredibly shocked. As always, there's nothing else to say but go Noles.
Go Noles.